missionaries coming in. All right, take your Bibles, turn to Hebrews. We'll look at a couple of verses in Hebrews 1 and Hebrews 10, 1 and 11, 1 and 12. Then we'll probably settle back into Hebrews 11, right around verse 31. I thought about going through chapter 10, not quite verse by verse, but a little bit more verse by verse. I want to try to get people to focus on chapter 11 differently than I think most of us do. We look at the heroes and we look at it as a recounting of heroes from the Old Testament, and it's almost just like a playlist in a way, and we can go there and remind us, and then people often take that and springboard back to the Old Testament, and they'll preach on that, and almost like I say, it's almost like they're going to chapter 11 and hitting play on the hero of faith they want to talk about, as opposed to just, or instead of just going in and talking about what God's trying to focus on in chapter 11. So in chapter 10, let me say what my reason for that is. I remember when God called me in the ministry, I prayed that God would put people in my path that would show me how to do what He's called me to do. I had no idea what it was going to take. No idea whatsoever. I remember sitting down and talking to one of the young men there that had surrendered maybe the year before, I think it was, and I said, what do you do? Where do you go from here? What do you do? And he gave me some advice. He shared some things, and he was recommended to me to go to him by another preacher. He said, because he's going through, or just went through what you're going through. And it was just interesting how God all throughout my life has put people there to help me to do that. But in doing so, I thought, well, I don't even really know exactly what all a preacher needs to do and all, but I'm going to start studying. I love that study yesterday on, was it CT Stud? I enjoyed that because I used to study through and look at preachers that were known to be godly preachers, effective preachers. And I started looking for common things they had in their lives. I figured if God used those things in life, it's probably something I need to look at and I need to adhere to. Prayer was paramount. I mean, that was one of the biggest things was prayer. Sacrifice. That was another thing. And faith. Boy, you study out the faith part. And the faith that some of these men had. I was listening to an account of a preacher, very well-known preacher, I'll mention his name now, from years ago, and listening to his early part of his ministry. And I thought, man, that guy was tough. He was tough as nails. You're talking about back in like circuit riding preachers' days, and I think he made some of them feel nervous. When you can make a circuit riding preacher nervous and wear one of them out, you're probably doing something. Yeah. So anyhow, in Hebrews, I think what we need to do is learn about the faith, the aspect of faith that God's trying to get us to understand there. I feel like in some ways, this is one of the most faithless generations in a long time, or becoming that way. Mm-hmm. You go into church, and I remember early on in ministry, somebody told me, they said, deputation is a ministry in itself. And then they didn't want to tell me the rest of it. They wanted me to learn it, and I did. One of the things I learned is the people, they were taken back by the ways that God would move in your life, and they wanted to hear more and more of that. They wanted to know more about all the ways God's moving in your life. And I think part of it was many of them had never experienced something like that in their own life. They had never seen God repetitively do things that could not be explained by anything other than God. And I thought, man, why do we not have this faith in God like we should? He's faithful. He's reliable. We can count on Him. Trust in Him. I mean, if we trust Him for our salvation, why can't we trust Him for everything else? And God has allowed several things in my life to strengthen that area of my life, and undoubtedly, if I falter or fail in those areas, and I shouldn't say when, because we all will, He'll do something else to bring me back in line with that again. But I think we ought to have great faith because we have a great God of faith. So Hebrews chapter 10, you know what? We're going to skip chapter 10, verse 1. We're just going to look at chapter 11, verse 1 and 12. It says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. In chapter 10, or in chapter 11, he shows us the focal point of chapter 11, which is faith. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. As I said the other day when I was doing a devotion on this, it's very much like if you were to take two bottles and set them up here, and one was Aquafina water, whatever your favorite water is. I don't really know. I don't really know that I have a favorite one. I just like good water. Aquafina water and Sprite, they're going to look nearly identical. But if you are a person who craves a particular substance, you're going to look at the label and know instantly which one you want. Because there's something in one that's not in the other, and though you can't see it, you know it's there. Your mind instantly starts to crave it, and it's sugar. Your mind's going to say, that's what I want. Well, I'll tell you what, the Lord is sweet. If you don't believe me, taste and see. God is so good to us that anything bad that does happen, we ought to be quiet. We ought to just shut our mouths and not say a word. He's so good. I mean, the way he takes care of our every single need and then goes about it to do it, if we'll seek it and look for it, he'll meet our needs in ways that cannot be explained by anything other than God, so that he gets the glory and he strengthens our faith. Amen. He helps us to stay closer to him. I mean, I am grateful for that. But faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. There are many things I have faith. I started to try to define it a different way. I have faith God is going to do in my ministry, in my life, my marriage, in my child's life. You say, but you haven't seen those things yet. It's all right. I know they're there. I know it's going to happen. I know what God's going to, I know God, I don't know what he's going to do, exactly how he's going to do it, but I know God's going to take care of all the needs. Because that's how he is. He's faithful. Chapter 12, and we're going to go back to the end of chapter 10. It says, wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. A couple of things. The patience part. That's what faith brings. The more you live by faith, the more you trust God by faith, the more you allow God to build your faith, the more patience you have. When my daughter wants something really bad, and she's not confident I'm going to give it to her, she will pester me to no end and then get grounded. She'll get herself in trouble. But when it's funny because there's some things my daughter just knows I'm going to take care of. I have fun doing this. I'll walk into the house and I'll just not look at either one of them. I'll just say, I love you. And both of them will say, I love you too. They don't know which one I'm talking to. But a lot of times if I'm directly looking at my wife and I say, I love you, my daughter will be doing her own thing. She'll say, I love you too, Dad. And go back because she expects, it's a given, Dad loves me. And the other day when something hit her nose, what did she do? She came to Dad. Because by faith she knew, I'll go to Dad, he will pick me up, he'll hold me, he'll love me. And then she did something that I kind of thought was funny, but I almost wanted to know what it was because I just wanted to reward her for it in a way. But I knew it was probably not the right thing to do. So I didn't. She looked at me, she said, Dad, you know the other day when my nose got hurt and you picked me up and held me and made it better and all that kind of stuff? I said, yeah. She said, I started to butter you up and see what and ask you for something, but I decided not to. And I thought, well, that's so kind of you not to butter me up for that. But it's because she had confidence. Daddy loves me enough that he'll take care of this need. You know what? He'll just take care of other needs too. I got some other things that aren't really needs, but they're wants. And maybe while he's taking care of a need, maybe I could just slip a want in. You say, what would you have done if she had slipped a want in then? That's none of anybody's business. I'd have given in, okay? How could you not when they have that much faith that you can help them and take care of their needs? How can you not? And God's the same way. He wants to do it because he wants you to have a closer walk with him. He wants you to have such confidence in him that you look not to the things of yourself, you look not to the things of the world, but you look to him and him alone. You don't try to give his glory to anybody else. You don't try to give your affection to anybody else, to self or to things or to the world. You solely rely on him and stay focused on him. And there's a reason for it. There's a race that's set before us. And we're either going to run it with patience, and the only way you're going to do that is to stay focused on Christ. That is the only way you're going to do it. And Hebrews chapter 11 really is almost like a courtroom where the world is trying your faith. The world is telling you, and Satan is telling you, you cannot trust God. And God is calling to remembrance for you all of his faithful witnesses that are a witness to you of his faithfulness in every aspect, every situation. There's nothing that faith cannot do. Nothing. If God sets it forth in your life to do, I promise you, faith can bring you through. Faith in God can bring you through. Chapter 10, verse 31. These 31 and 32 are very fearful verses. There's a choice there. In 31, it says, "It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God." Boy, if it just ended the chapter right there, that would not be a chapter many Christians would frequent. And if they did, they would find something else to do right towards the end. But it says, "But call to remembrance the former days." What does he mean, former days? How many, when you got saved, you were on cloud nine, whatever expression you want to use, you were on top of the world? When you got saved, there was nothing that you would not attempt for Christ. The only limiting thing that kept you back from trying it for Christ was one simple thing. I don't know how, God. If I knew more about the Bible, God, I'd share more. If I knew more about soul winning, I'd go out. God, if I knew more. But you had a fervency in you, and you would go out. You could be counted on to be to church early. You could count on to be wherever you were expected or needed and just filling in whatever. I'm amazed at the Christians that when they first get saved, they will do all the jobs that they never liked to before. They'll come into the church, the church, and they'll rip a plunger out of your hand to go plunge the toilet. Why? Because that's that former day. That's that beginning. And then all of a sudden they draw back and they forget those former days. They forget how good God is. They forget how good faith is. They forget how good it was to be saved, and they draw back. Now, some, I believe, it's just because what we see in the last verse, "But we are not of them that draw back unto perdition, but of them that believe to the saving of the soul." Some of them, I believe, are just not saved. But many are. Many are, and they've forgotten. They forgot their first love, you could say. They've forgotten they've forgotten that former days in which after they were illuminated, they were willing to endure anything, any trial. You ever been on visitation with somebody who just recently got saved, and you're like, "Lord, please help them not to say what they said in the car when we go into the door." God, I know it's just their zeal, but there is definitely a lack of knowledge. And then they get up there and they start just sharing how good God is, and you look like the biggest dummy in the world, and they're doing more. You're sitting there, man, you've got everything ready. You're ready to answer every question. You're hoping they'll ask questions to you. Yeah. And that person just cuts loose and starts weeping or sharing how good God is. And you're like, "Yep, that's what it was. Yeah, that's what they needed. Not all the other. That's what they needed." But I'm not going to get to the rest of the verses, so that's all right. Let me read this. Look at verse 36. I'm just going to read let me just read it real quick. "For ye have need of patience." Actually, look at verse 35. "Cast not away, therefore, your confidence." You know what you do when you walk away from living by faith and you don't wake up asking God to order your day and to show you what to do and to help you with your day? You know what you lose when you pray and when you pray and you don't just take your hands off of it? You lose confidence. That confidence allows you to walk by faith. My time is gone. Walk with God today. I encourage you, at some point when we break, stop and pray and talk to God. Ask God to stretch your faith, to increase your faith. He'll do it. And it won't always be in the way that tries you to your core and to the limits. Sometimes it'll be simple little things. I pray maybe that'll be what it is today. All right, you want us to lead us in the chorus real quick?